Hey everyone, it's Thursday morning here in China, and I'm about to go get some breakfast and then head to the factory pretty soon. Hopefully today we're going to see some PCBA and some other things. PCBA is a really cool process, so I'm excited to show that to you. So yesterday, one of the important things that we did was actually test some of the PCBA and make sure that all of the components were working as they always should be. And so now we've started the mass production of just the PCBA portion, and I'm going to show you step by step what happened. So now we're in a different part of the factory, and I'll show you. This is where the PCBA happened. This is one SMT line, surface mount technology line, and it starts right here. The capacity of a factory is mostly judged by the number of SMT lines they have. So some factories may have only one SMT line, some have 10. That means that they can have 10 different boards being assembled at one time. And this factory has quite a few, I'm not sure exactly. So at the very beginning of the SMT line, we have the finished circuit boards. These were actually made at a separate factory in an entirely different process that we're not going to go over, but this is 4 PCBs in what they call a panel, and these are going to flow all together through the line. The panels get loaded into trays, you can kind of see right there, that are automatically fed through this machine. This is all automated, so it's actually just waiting for the rest of the machine to come up. And inside of this machine is a stainless steel etched mask, and it has holes where all of the solder needs to be. So there's a squeegee, and it squishes solder paste into those holes, and that's where the components are going to be soldered to eventually. So coming out of the machine is now the panel, which has solder paste on it. You can kind of see some of those gold pads are now kind of gray, and that's where the solder mask is, and that's where all of the components are going to be put in the next couple machines. So the next part of the process is actually the most exciting. This is where all of the components are picked off of reels using a small vacuum nozzle and are placed exactly where they're supposed to be extremely fast. So like I said, the next part of this process is the pick and place part, and that is where lots of reels are being loaded into these pick and place machines. So he's just reloading a reel right now and placing it in the machine. Each one of these reels has a single component on it. So this SMT line is actually designed to work with any kind of printed circuit board. Ours is actually relatively simple. I think our board has about 150 components on each board, which means about, let's say, 600 on each panel. This line can have hundreds. So if we have a look at just one head of this one part of the pick and place machine, this is a Fuji, I think made in Japan. Look down here, this is a reel, and each one of those rectangular windows is actually one component. That's what it's picking up. Here's 4 smaller pick and place machines, and oh, we just missed it. Oh, here's one coming out. And you can see some of those components have now been placed. There's still more to go. So in this machine, there are multiple heads picking up from these reels and placing them. So this is a single head machine. Every time it picks one up, that flashes, it's checking the orientation to make sure that it puts it in the right way. Very fast. So these machines are basically picking up components that are smaller than a grain of rice and placing them within less than 0.1 millimeter of tolerance. And they do it insanely fast. As you can see, this is not sped up even remotely. This is actually a slow machine. So this device is picking up these really small components, and it has to make sure that it gets the center and knows the orientation. So every time that flash is going off, it's taking a picture, and it's showing up here and showing exactly what it looks like and make sure it's picking up right. So after all the components are placed, they're just being stuck there with sort of this tackiness of this solder paste. But what next needs to happen is it goes through a long oven that's temperature controlled, and it actually bakes from start to finish. So this is the oven. It's probably about, I don't know, 15 feet long, I'd say. And within that, there is a temperature profile. Each portion of the oven is set at a specific temperature to basically bring up the solder correctly and melt. And here's the finished panel going into the oven. And it's going to traverse this whole length. It's called reflowing. And eventually it's going to pop. So if you haven't figured out already, there's actually quite a lot of setup that goes into making one printed circuit board. This is sort of why they like to do a lot of them at once. They want to have the line set up and then just let it run. And of course, I mean, there's an operator here to make sure things are going smoothly, but I say one operator, there's actually about 3 people. There's someone loading panels, there's somebody checking on all the pick and place machines, and then there's actually another person at the end doing inspection, and I'll show you that part in a second. So the baked boards are coming out of the oven. All the solder has been melted and is now electrically conducting between the components and the boards. And the next step is optical inspection. So this machine is called a AOI, Automatic Optical Inspection. And this is checking to make sure that all of the components were soldered correctly and are still there after the whole process. It's really, really smart. You can see all the components checking in blue. And then there's actually an operator here. Every time the machine flags something, the operator then checks it themselves and either okays it or marks it as NG, which means no good. So it'll then take those boards and either put them in the good pile or the bad. So the machine is extremely sensitive. So every time it flags something, she's actually going to check it individually. And anything that has an issue is generally pretty easily solved. It just needs some hand soldering or rework. So one thing I forgot to mention is that's actually only one side of the board. That's only actually half the process. There's still a second side. So that's the top with placements. If you can see it, nothing under there. So I'm back from lunch and they've reset up the entire SMT line to now work on the top of the PCB. So that's what they're working on now, and I'll show you quickly what it looks like. One thing that we missed last time is this solder paste machine actually working. So here you can actually see squeegee rolling that solder paste over the stencil, and it's the same exact thing as a silkscreen actually. So at this point you can really start seeing the PCB. It's getting connectors. Some of the larger components are now going on the board. There's a big connector. So yeah, it's the same thing here. The reflow oven, the boards come out of here, go through the optical inspection, make sure everything's checked. Done. Just doing some testing.